Tomorrow I'm going to Rome.
Are you going to be canonized in Rome?
I'm not going to meet with Leonzinho and Ardo Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger, what message will you give to Pope Leon XIV?
Leon XIII was a pope who opened the doors of the Catholic Church to science. And now we have Leon XIV. Climate change is already here. It's not just a problem for 2030.
It has already knocked, or it has already broken down the door?
For me, it has already broken down the door.
The Pantanal has changed a lot since you arrived.
There are areas of the Pantanal that no longer exist. In 2020, you had a year of burning all year long. Minutes ago, there was no fire here. We lost 3.3 million hectares of native vegetation, which is about 35 times the size of the city of São Paulo. But wow, just saying that. Repinho is the largest natural breeding center for the Aranjo in the world. Last year, a fire that came from the neighbor burned 80% of the farm, the Pantanal.
How can we live alongside agribusiness, which is so important for our economy, without destroying our nature? Do you get the impression that Brazilians already admire and respect the Pantanal, or do they still have that old view that it's just a big swamp full of alligators?
I always say that every Brazilian should have the chance to visit the Pantanal, to have contact with wildlife that you can't find anywhere else in Brazil. And to me, it can only be compared to Botswana. Serengeti in Africa is tough, but the Pantanal is even more dramatic and for the strong. Don't worry about your hair or looking tidy. You'll sweat and get messy because it's really hot.
And between your optimism and your pessimism, what do you conclude? The Pantanal can be saved. You said you saw it looking beautiful and were shocked because something was happening there. Water meant for the river was diverted to the soy fields.
So I followed up on the public prosecutor's office process.
So you managed to create a law?
I did many times. That was just one.
And you've already been threatened, literally like, we're going to kill you.
I made a report on Jornal Nacional about the cocaine trafficking route through the Pantanal. Then I learned 40 police officers were arrested following my report.
How many wanted to kill you? And what's your expectation for the 2030 World Cup?
Everyone is struggling. We can't favor one group over others. Also, turn off the airport lights and leave.
This city has recently entered the Catholic map.
Carlo Acutis. For me, it's a very interesting moment for the Catholic Church. It's about showing that anyone can do good. You can live in holiness and stop wanting to post. What's important is the result of my actions.
That's where your holiness lies.
Maybe not.
The episode is starting. It's amazing. But first, an important message. 81% of M3 Atos viewers aren't subscribed. For you, it's just pressing a button and costs nothing, but for me, it's very important and makes a big difference. So here's my request. Subscribe to the channel and share this episode with someone you think will enjoy it. Hold on, the episode is about to start, but I have just one more message for you. If you want to study with me, take all my courses, and also have live mentoring every month on Zoom, come join the Jornada Club. All the details are here in the video description. Check it out, and now let's go to the first act. My guest carries in her brilliant resume the unquestionable merit of having introduced Brazil to the wonders of a region that for centuries was viewed with disdain. A non-existent place, as if all the riches of the Pantanal were just a pile of mud, a land of alligators. Through my guest's eyes, we saw a different Pantanal, striking, marvelous, and urgent. Because besides showing beauty, she revealed to us abuses, mismanagement, and a persistent disregard for nature, like that time when she exposed illegal charcoal plants across the plains, which we should and must preserve. Even though she was born far away, in Espírito Santo, my guest learned to speak the language of plants, animals, and people. From this place where I've been coming for almost 3 decades, doing reports, telling stories about people who know the path of the waters, the flooded lands, and they say, even the sky. In today's show, far from our studio in Sao Paulo. Here, where Brazil is calmer and everything is a treasure, where the powerful economy faces the need for preservation. Let's hear stories and memories from someone who, because of what life gave her, became a daughter of the Pantanal, Cláudia Gaigher. Come on in.
Welcome to our Mato Grosso do Sul then.
I learned you don't live here now.
Yes, I'm in São Paulo going back and forth.
In Ilha Bela?
No, not Ilha Bela. I go for work.
Because on the internet it says that Cláudia moved to Ilha Bela.
That's just chat generative pre-trained transformer making things up. It's not true.
What's the real story?
The real story is that I keep my house here, but I have a lot of work elsewhere, so my real home base is Mato Grosso do Sul. I'm in São Paulo now, just returned from Belo Horizonte and heading to Rome tomorrow. I'm always on the move.
You're going to be canonized in Rome?
I'm not really meeting a little lion, am I? I am. How does that happen? Tell me, there's a global movement called Laudato in Brazil. Yes, because of Francisco's May 2015 encyclical from 10 years ago. And this encyclical gives the guidelines for the Catholic Church on social and environmental issues. But in these 10 years, a lot of things haven't been put into practice. And when Pope Leon XIV took over, he brought up the need for the Catholic Church to get involved and promote mitigation actions. In short, for the involvement of the Catholic community. And the Catholic community has 1.4 billion people in the world. So imagine if each one did something, we would solve a lot of problems, right? So what now? This meeting will take place in Castel Gandolfo. A few people who are not part of the movement have been invited. I was one of them. To my knowledge, only one other Brazilian journalist and I were there. And then it will be 3 days there at the Pope's summer residence.
You and Pope Leo XIV?
Arnold Schwarzenegger was right in front of Marina Silva. I thought it was so cool, though I'm not sure why.
Yeah, Schwarzenegger and Pope Leo and Marina, so many different people.
I'll be back. I'm going to say I'm back, but it's precisely to discuss, to celebrate Laudato Si, to outline strategies the Vatican will send, the Conferência Nacional dos Bispos do Brasil. They're going to participate in Conference of the Parties. 30. I gave a lecture to bishops, priests, lay people, and nuns a month ago at the pre-COP. Precisely so they could really understand the socio-environmental situation in the Midwest. My part was to talk about the Midwest, and then I ended up being invited.
I was invited after all. No one randomly gets invited to meet the Pope or Schwarzenegger.
And Marina Silva.
Why were you invited?
Why is that? I'm Catholic. I like having faith. I like to pray. I have my Our Father, my Hail Mary in my hand here, and I've always worked with social and environmental issues, right, Rodrigo? I've always maintained that we shouldn't just wait for things to change on a macro level. From a decision by the state, from a signed treaty, from a commitment made by our leaders. I've always believed and lived by the idea that everything begins at home. So you seek sustainability, you seek social and environmental justice within your own home. From your consumption habits, how you treat your surroundings, how you consume, how you deal with nature and with people. The church has this principle, and I often ask my priest, bishop, and archbishop friends, why not start an initiative in the parish? Can you imagine that, Rodrigo? If each parish takes care of the spring near where the church is located, right? It would be wonderful if a restoration was done in the area covered by that archdiocese, if that traditional community, that indigenous village was cared for, whether it's a demarcated territory or not. To bring sustainability, to bring opportunities for a life that's a bit more harmonious. So I've always done that, and those who live with me know it. So things started coming together like a puzzle.
But are you going as a representative of the Pantanal?
Very likely, because I was talking 2 days ago. I was at another event where I went to give a lecture in Belo Horizonte, which is a South American event, a South American Congress of Technologies for Conservation. And I have always treated communication as something very important within science. I have always trained researchers a lot to know how to speak, to know what they are bringing in their research, to know how to communicate with journalists. Sometimes there's a distance, right? You've worked for such a long time. You've already done a lot of reporting as a scientist. Sometimes they have wonderful knowledge, but they don't know how to speak, or they don't know how to translate it into simple language. And then this meeting is a meeting of technologies. So you had everyone from those who develop technologies to help with monitoring, to help with research, to those who actually do the research. And I was invited to talk about communication. And I always tell them that they make history, I tell the story. So there are people there who are saving whales, who use bioacoustics to find out what the animals are saying and how that impacts the community or even the species. Some people use trap cameras and thermal drones to spot animals by their body heat that would otherwise be unseen in the forest. They had everything. And me talking about communication, then I arrived yesterday.
From where?
I'm in Belo Horizonte today and heading to Rome tomorrow.
But I want to know, what message will you give Pope Leo XIV?
The first is the invitation. I would really like him to come to Brazil because he worked for a long time in Peru. He worked a lot with traditional communities. He has always been very active in looking at socio-environmental issues. And we need in Brazil to seek this connection because what I feel among the Brazilian people is a disconnection from reality. There are bubbles, the urban bubble of those who live in the southeast, in the big cities, in the major economic centers, and the bubble of those who are isolated and don't always have access. Certain sectors like agribusiness are in a bubble. Everyone is disconnected, but we need connection since no one is an enemy.
Disconnected or uninterested?
I think both. Rodrigo is sometimes disconnected because it's been so long. Disconnected from nature, disconnected from communities as life goes on. She doesn't pay attention to her surroundings, leading to a lack of interest. When you don't know, you don't care.
Because living in São Paulo like I do now, you see some trees but not real nature. And then I also forget that it exists. Of course, I don't really forget, because I try to remind myself. But if I let it go, I come here to Campo Grande, where we are now. I realize, look how wonderful this is, and I don't have this anymore. I've seen some macaws flying by, it's impressive, and we really start to disconnect. Do you think we need to work on reconnecting?
For me, it's about connection. When you disconnect from what you're part of, I believe in biophilia. What is biophilia? It's about integrating yourself into that environment, into the habitat, with all the other species that make up that environment. But it's not something you're born with. You have to take the child and bring them to the playground near your house. And when you go to the little park near your house, encourage your child to observe. See which bird they saw. Do you know what animal is making this song? Let's look for it. We have nowadays tools on the internet where you can upload a bird song and it gives you a description of what bird it is and where it can be found. So encouraging new generations to do what the Japanese prescribe for health, which is forest bathing, embracing the forest. This has already been proven in Japan. They use healthcare taxes. They prescribe at least 40 minutes of contact with nature, whether it's walking, being in a forest, or in a quiet environment where you can hear the sounds of life. This lowers your blood pressure, helps control your blood sugar levels, and helps reduce your anxiety. It helps address today's mental health issues in humanity. People don't do it because they think they lack it. Living in a concrete-filled place like São Paulo, they believe there aren't any people. The largest water reserve of the Atlantic forest is less than 40 minutes from downtown São Paulo.
Guarapiranga? No.
You have the legacy of the waters. Guarapiranga is a reservoir. That's where you have the dam that supplies the water. But where does this water come from? It comes from the Atlantic forest. The Atlantic forest supplies water to 120 million Brazilians. And there you have the Serra do Mar, which is a reserve, a state park. And you have the Serra da Bocaina National Park, which also covers a part of that area. So people need to understand that nature is very close to them. They may think it's not true because they live in the city, but it is. São Paulo has trees from the Empire era where Dom Pedro I once rested. It's still alive. It's right there among those.
For me to go there, man.
I'll send it on WhatsApp later since I don't remember now. There's one because my dear friend Cardin is in São Paulo. He's specialized in botany, urban planning, and tree planting, and he wrote a book called The Giants of the Atlantic Forest. He took the original trees that existed before Europeans arrived in 1500. One is in São Paulo. Wonderful, it's very beautiful, that's it. When I say it's a loss of connection, sometimes the person doesn't connect because they don't know. I can't say it's just lack of interest because when I mention this, your eyes light up like, When I'm back in Sao Paulo, I'll check WhatsApp for the tree's location and take a picture. Because we need to communicate. That's why I've been doing this a lot since I left television and on my Instagram, in the lectures I give, in the consulting work I do. Because when we act a little as a bridge, which is how I see myself today, bringing together people who possibly would never meet because their interests don't converge. I can plant a little seed in them, and I, like you, I've always loved your wonderful articles. I really miss your reports. I'll never forget one you did in Berlin about the trees that talk to each other. I loved that report. There are even new discoveries about that to this day. And I think we have to inspire people. When I'm passionate about a topic, I inspire people to want more. And that desire is directed at me. I've already done this by inviting people to visit the Pantanal. So if I get to talk for 5 minutes with a cute little lion, the first thing I'll say is, let's go.
You want Pope Lion 14th in the Pantanal?
Not to the Pantanal in Brazil. It's difficult since everything is far and there's a security staff. He hasn't made an international trip since he was chosen in the conclave, but like Francisco's first trip after being chosen Pope was to Rio de Janeiro. Why not? We could do that again.
But do you have a message you want him to hear? If you had one sentence, if you were there with the Pope right now and had 1 minute to say something to him, to give a message to Pope Leo XIV, what would your message be to him?
I would really like the world to stop thinking of Brazil only as the Amazon. I would really like people to think about the connection, because we talk about the Amazon. And he worked in Peru, which is a country that has part of the Amazon. Why am I saying this? Because the Amazon is just one of our biomes, Rodrigo, and our biomes are connected, interconnected, and interdependent. So the first thing I would say to him is, let's look at the whole picture, let's look at the whole picture, let's look at the whole picture of the consumption pattern, of the production we have today in Brazil, which is depleting our natural resources, but there are good people doing sustainable things. So my message to Leão is, let's visit Brazil, but let's explore a side that even most Brazilians don't know.
That was my point. Do you think Brazilians already admire and respect the Pantanal, or do they still see it as just a big swamp full of alligators?
It hasn't changed much, and what has changed was due to tragedy. My parents said we learn through love or pain. I spent 26 years doing a lot of reporting here for Brazil and for the world. But I realized it was from 2020, from that great catastrophe, the fires that we had, which happened to coincide with the pandemic period when people were at home and ended up being able to watch more television and consume more information. And Brazil and the world realized the magnitude of the catastrophe. Because imagine having an entire year of burning in 2020. I started covering stories about fires in January and February, which is the rainy season, and it was already burning. When November came, there were still fires. We lost 3 million hectares of native vegetation in the Pantanal. That's about 1/3, something like 35 times the size of the city of São Paulo. So there was a huge loss, and the last major flood we had in the Pantanal was in 2018. Since then, it hasn't flooded again. The largest floodplain on the planet is drying up.
It's drying up and the plant will die.
Die. Not necessarily everything. You have a change in the environmental services provided, the environment will change. What is now a floodplain, the largest on the planet, could turn into a vast savanna, which is what scientists say. Because the Pantanal, Rodrigo, when we look at the Pantanal, we imagine that it's full of water. All that water is the most beautiful thing. The Pantanal. The rainfall in the Pantanal is lower than in the Caatinga. The Pantanal doesn't produce rain.
Where does Amazon water come from?
From the flying rivers. And then you're reducing the volume of water from this moisture that comes through the atmosphere and falls as rain in the Midwest. The North Atlantic Convergence Zone also provides this moisture to the Amazon, which then joins the flying rivers. And with the warming of the oceans, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, you have less moisture emission, less evaporation. Also, every river in the Pantanal starts in the Cerrado, which was chosen for sacrifice.
Why was it chosen for sacrifice?
Because you have the biome that's right in the middle of Brazil and has already lost more than half of its native vegetation. And that's where agribusiness and production are advancing.
Agribusiness is destroying the Cerrado.
Yes, we know that.
And it's going to destroy the Pantanal.
The Pantanal and other areas rely on the Cerrado, since 8 of Brazil's 12 main river basins have their main sources there. São Francisco. The São Francisco River originates in the Cerrado of Araguaia, as do the rivers Paraguay and others, all in the Cerrado.
How can we live with agribusiness, which is so important for our economy, without destroying our nature?
Many in agribusiness know not to destroy what brings prosperity. Why is the Cerrado valuable for production? First of all, it's very flat, so you can do precision agriculture and use machinery. Second, there used to be a perfect rainfall pattern. It rained at the right time during planting when the crops needed to grow, and then came the dry season. That was exactly during the harvest period, so everything matched perfectly with the planet's climate changes. You don't have that anymore. There are already places where you no longer get the rain you used to have at the same time. Or sometimes it all comes at once in an extreme event, or a gale comes with winds of 100, 120 km/h and destroys everything. Today, the climate issue is already at our door. It's not just a concern for 2030.
It knocked or broke down the door for me.
It already broke down. For me, it already broke down. Last week in Mato Grosso do Sul, a windstorm blew off all the roofs. In São Paulo's countryside at the Toyota factory, another storm hit and damaged the building. These are extreme events.
A September rain just now destroyed São Paulo. Everything stopped.
Exactly, São Paulo. Rio Grande do Sul last year. Why there did we do that? Because there was a heat atmospheric blockage over our central west region and a bit of the south. Humidity from the Amazon, which once brought rain to the central west in the rainy season, was diverted by a blockage, as if a bubble covered our region. It was diverted and fell. Where? In Rio Grande do Sul all at once. So if it had been balanced, this rain would have been distributed. So I say that it's possible for us to produce because that's important. Commodities drive the Brazilian economy, our trade balance. The world needs food, but the world needs food. At what price? At what cost? It's one of the things we're going to discuss at this meeting, which will be talked about in the churches, with the Pope, and with everyone who will be there, because it's not just for the Catholic Church. There are several specialists from all over the world who will take part in this meeting, because Francisco's encyclical is really interesting to read. I tell everyone to check online since it's all based on scientific studies. This isn't an idea from the Pope, who simply visited and linked it to faith. It's science. And the most interesting thing is that Leon XIII was a pope who opened the doors of the Catholic Church to science, and now we have Leon XIV. I think that for me, everything comes together in my mind, everything is connected, and agribusiness has the power to produce sustainably. There are a lot of good people doing this because it's also interesting for them. It adds value to the product and earns international seals of respect for social and environmental issues. And to maintain what it needs, which is the water cycle, we need water. Rodrigo, a lot.
I drink water all day. Did you notice? You do too, right?
A lot.
I can't imagine being short on water. I was going to show you while you talked about 2020. This image here is really shocking about what happened back then.
Oh, very much so.
What you saw?
That one. I think she was run over. She was run over, run over. She was run over. Do you see the road? Oh, no, not that one. That one wasn't. That one was burned. I saw all of this. I saw all of this. We used to stay like this.
What animal is that? Can you tell which one it is?
This one here, it's a little mammal, but I don't know. I really don't know if it is one.
Did you see several like this?
Wow, not just like this. Rodrigo, a poor anaconda isn't really scary.
That's not normal, despite claims that the Pantanal always burns.
Oh, I heard that, Rodrigo. I heard that so much. But
how do we respond to that?
This normalization of the problem, which allows the problem to have the space to perpetuate itself. Everyone says this anaconda is normal. Just so you have an idea, guys, this anaconda is huge. It must be at least 4 meters long, judging by its size and thickness. Usually, the female is bigger than the male. A species like this takes many years to reach sexual maturity and start having babies. So when we kill a breeding female, we kind of sentence the maintenance of that species. So, for example, here, roadkill is something that happened a lot in the Pantanal, which people didn't notice, and it still happens today. Species fleeing from the fire. You can see there's a lot of smoke. The animals, we saw the animals. Wow, just talking about it gives me goosebumps. The animals running like that, desperate and running in all directions. They'd walk past the firefighting teams without noticing, or sometimes glance over with desperate eyes. And then they would run along the asphalt with cars passing by and everything. The visibility was compromised by the smoke, and cars would drive right over. So we had direct losses from the fire, like this one you showed, who died, burned, scorched, completely charred. And we had losses. My God, a jaguar, ours, mine. I can't handle this, Ro. I can't. Do you know why? Because we saw so many of these animals that when they were rescued by the researchers, the firefighters, the rescue teams, they barely reacted. Did you know that? They barely reacted because they were in such intense pain. Look, we were there in Mato Grosso in the northern Pantanal, Manassi in 2020, but then we had Usado. Both of them have recovered. Manassi can't be reintroduced because she was so badly burned. Even her tendons were damaged. She couldn't survive in the wild. Her little paws and all the soft parts melted. Anyway, Manassi is the name of a jaguar. We give jaguars names because we identify them by their rosettes, the bold one. He recovered, thank God. He came back and now he's really happy. He even has a beautiful hunting behavior where he dives like this, really cute. He looks like a fish. He dives and makes a big leap to catch, only he does that. The fishermen haven't found another jaguar that behaves similarly. Jojo visited us in Mato Grosso do Sul.
They all died.
It wasn't the survivors, they died. 3 or 4 didn't make it. Rodrigo will never really know how many died for sure. Antakara, I saw an anta with that 100-kilo animal stuck in the middle of it. The Pantanal's peat burns underground, so water only puts out surface fires while it keeps burning below. And then the poor heavy animal would step and get stuck in that burning spot without burning one up there in the mountains sharpening. The boys, firefighters, and fishermen tried to rescue her. She wasn't burned because she kept slipping away. You couldn't hold her. She slipped away and died. She really did. Oh my God.
Such sadness. Did you see that too? I saw a lot of the little monkeys climbing up the trees to escape the fire.
Some managed to escape, others didn't. Some did. What happens? People think they die burned because people just burned. You have several situations. The fires are coming with a lot of intensity. Rodrigo OS, it's a matter of 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You're here and suddenly you hear the crackling. Then comes that fire, that wind closes everything. You have nowhere to run. Then fire, wind. The main problem is the immediate impact. The fire burns everything and everyone, but toxic smoke remains.
Which also kills animals and people.
Everyone had jaguars rescued, which died here at the Wild Animal Rehabilitation Center. It happened because her respiratory system was compromised. She had pneumonia, severe burns both externally and internally, and her organs were affected. We and Riverside residents, Pantanal city dwellers, firefighters, and brigade members all breathed this smoke during the fire. We expose ourselves to risk as if we were working inside a coal mine. We end up with after effects.
What are the after effects for us?
It's because people only think about the moment. It's on fire, that horrible smoke comes, then comes that gust of wind that brings dust, brings soot, brings everything. But in fires, there's something that isn't visible to our eyes. You have an Amazon rainforest, you have a Cerrado, a Pantanal, whose trees have spent decades, centuries capturing carbon, which is one of the environmental services that vegetation provides. When the fire comes and burns it all in one day, all that carbon captured over centuries is released into the atmosphere at once, released. Issue number 1, greenhouse gases. So what nature took centuries, millennia to capture and regulate in our atmosphere. In a week of fire, everything is released at once because it burned. It burned, no mystery. The area has families, but no history. The air holds no story.
It's not natural. Such fires are very rare.
Lightning does strike, but that's the exception. The rule is human involvement. Sometimes it's not even intentional. Sometimes someone makes a small fire by the river to burn leaves or scare off mosquitoes. But we work with the 30-30-30 theory, which is temperature above 30 degrees, relative humidity below 30%, and winds over 30 kilometers per hour. This 30-30-30 combination is the recipe for disaster when it comes to forest fires. And that's what we've been experiencing. Right now, you must be feeling the low humidity outside, a scorching heat of just over 30 degrees, and it's already windy. We can hear it.
So we're in a climate.
We're in a critical moment, which is the dry season, which is August, July, August, September.
There could be a fire at any moment.
There was one this year, thank God it's calmer now because it rained a little more. And the preventive measures, both public and private, are having an effect. Mato Grosso do Sul was the first state to have the integrated fire management protocol, which was in 2021. Last year, Brazil signed this protocol for the whole country. What is integrated fire management? It's a series of actions, including environmental education, informing, preparing, and organizing civil and public brigades. Prescribe burning right after the rains. You burn areas that will accumulate dry vegetation during the dry season, so you reduce that vegetation and lower the risk of wildfires. Or if a fire does appear, if it starts there, it will be smaller in scale so you can control it. So it's a combination of factors.
There was something good.
So more needs to be done. New legislation called the Pantanal law, no.
But law. We usually don't comply.
The problem is complying. But here in Mato Grosso do Sul, there's been a very interesting union of forces, which makes me very happy. The current state government itself has called on researchers and NGOs. Imagine politics dealing with NGOs. It used to be all kind of messy. Now let's sit down and see what we can do. That's it. One says I can go this far, the other says I can go that far, but this here is essential. So there is an effort happening at the state level and also in the federal government, a really big effort, which is a union of knowledge. You have the knowledge produced by public agencies. You have academic knowledge and popular knowledge. We don't have time left, Rodrigo. The point of no return has already hit the Amazon and the Pantanal. We're like this because, for example, friends of mine own farms in the Pantanal where dry seasons and fire have always been normal. You can't have zero fire there.
That's what people who claim nothing is happening argue.
No, it's like this. It's something people need to understand. Here's the thing. The Pantanal is a mix of biomes. We have Cerrado vegetation, we have Amazon vegetation, we have Caatinga vegetation, we have Pantanal vegetation, and you can even find a few things from the Atlantic forest there. It's a big mix, but what happens, the Cerrado took 65 million years to evolve into the plants we have today, and it's adapted to fire. Some species only germinate after a fire.
In short, fire is integral to Pantanal life.
It's what the indigenous people call the good fire. I once did an interview with the Tarina Indigenous Brigade from the Tarina Indigenous Territory in Miranda. They were putting out fires. We were putting out a lot of fires in the Pantanal. And I was doing a story for Jornal de Globo. Then I turned to him and asked, what do you say about fire? He said there are good and bad fires. This is a bad one. When I asked what he meant, he explained, a bad fire destroys everything, including underground seeds and animals. A good fire is more controlled and low. I found it interesting because I imagined what a good fire is like.
Natural fire is good. Man-made fire is bad.
Fire has always been used, even by indigenous peoples. Do you have records of human presence in the Pantanal from 10,000 years ago? It's always been used, but integrated fire management is about knowing how to use it properly, which is the legislation I mentioned about knowing when to burn vegetation so it doesn't become a ticking time bomb of dry plants that catch fire and burn everything. That's what we call a prescribed burn. That's the good fire. The bad fire is when it comes without control. The good fire you control. I took courses to understand the fires. There are several types of fire. You can identify what kind of fire it is by the color of the smoke, because then you know what kind of vegetation it is. Then there's the head of the fire, which is where the fire is moving, where it's going to spread. Instead of fighting it here, you fight at the head of the fire, extinguishing it in key spots to prevent it from spreading. There's a lot of technology in firefighting, and all of that is being used. That's very interesting. So when I say that fire is part of the Pantanal's dynamics, I don't mean at the intensity and frequency we're seeing now. Not since 2019.
What year did you arrive here in the Pantanal?
In 1998, in the last century.
Did you spend more than 20 years as a reporter here?
As a reporter, it was 26 years then.
The Pantanal has changed completely since you arrived.
Rodrigo, some parts of the Pantanal are gone, they just don't exist. What I saw and filmed is no longer there. Because, for people to understand, everyone thinks the Pantanal is just like the one from the soap opera, right? That thing with the river. But within the Pantanal, we actually have 11 different Pantanals, which are 11 different types of vegetation. There are areas of the Pantanal biome that don't flood, that are higher up, that look like a savanna. It's something you hardly ever see. That river that overflows, there are other areas where the water rises and falls that overflow a lot. There are areas under the influence of the Paraguay River where the flood is determined by the Paraguay River's flood. There are areas influenced by the Aquidauana River and the Miranda River, so the flood is determined by the rain. The river only overflows if it rains. If it doesn't rain, there is no flood. So you have a series, you have the mountain Pantanal, which is the Serra do Amolar, which is a mountain range. A huge mountain that acts as a natural dam and holds back the water from Cáceres and Poconé. When the flood comes, you have different moments of flooding. I recall Bonner on Journal National saying, you covered the Pantanal flood last month when I pitched a story. I replied, that was a different region. This flood is elsewhere because it takes 1 to 3 months for the water to reach those places.
So, did he say we're running it or not?
I can say that I was very happy during my time at Globo because every story I pitched, of course, I had to defend them with a lot of passion. But my stories were always approved because I combined scientific and traditional knowledge with images. He said, girl, there's no way to say no, okay? Here's that familiar story. You have 90 seconds.
There's no way I can tell this story in just 90 seconds.
I used to write texts so tightly constructed that removing anything meant cutting the entire piece. Smart?
You learned, right?
Did you do it too? As an editor, you know when something's well done and think, that's it.
Let it go with 3. I was thinking when I was coming here that it must have been really tough to be a reporter in the Pantanal while Cláudia Gaigher was here. Only you could enter, making it adorable, right?
But it's because, just like I said at the beginning of our conversation, enchantment is what drives me. I'm from the Atlantic Forest, Cachoeira do Tapemirim, in southern Espírito Santo. I had never set foot in the Midwest, in Brazil. When Globo asked me, do you want to go there? Then I looked, I'll never forget, I was in the newsroom in Rio. Schroeder at the time was the director.
Right.
Director, he turned to me and said, we have an opening in Campo Grande. Go there first to check it out, to see if you're interested first. I arrived here at dawn. There wasn't a soul on the street, not a single soul, I swear, even to this day. This is a very peaceful place.
Wow, capybaras were there.
But there was nothing else. That silence, I thought, wow, okay, I'll stay for 3 years. 27.
Accepted because of the salary?
I didn't accept it out of curiosity. I told him as a Brazilian, it was a Brazil I didn't know. I still remember talking to him like it was today. Gaigher, you're seeing things with fresh eyes. The first time I said, okay, and everything fascinated me. Imagine there in Espírito Santo in the southeast, you laughed when we're traveling on those winding roads along the coast, and after a curve, the sea appears, right? You know that feeling when the sea is near? I felt it, the urge to travel, those wide roads, turnarounds, but it wasn't the ocean, it was the green sea of the Pantanal. So I went. I had never been to the Cerrado, Pantanal, or Amazon. From here, Globo ended up sending me to do reports in other regions of Brazil, so it was a personal opportunity and I fell in love. The Pantanal, for me, I say that every Brazilian should have the opportunity to get to know the Pantanal. Why the Pantanal? First, it chooses its own. It's not an easy place. It's not a romantic place where I can just arrive. No. The Pantanal is dramatic and meant for the strong. It chooses its own. Some people can't handle it. By the second day, they're already asking to leave because it's so intense. There, you can encounter wildlife found nowhere else in Brazil. And for me, it's only comparable to Botswana, to the Serengeti in Africa, where you see that abundance of life. You're here and a herd of deer passes, then a jaguar crosses the road in front of you. You look at a tree and there are a bunch of blue macaws looking like a Christmas tree, all dotted in blue. You look at a nest and there's a jabiru stork. So the Pantanal is all right there within sight. Unlike the Amazon, which has this huge biodiversity, but because of the size of the trees and the Amazon biome itself, it's very different. You rarely see animals elsewhere, but in the Pantanal, you do. You wake up, sit on the porch, and watch animals pass by right in front of you. There are people who can't handle that.
They don't like it.
They can't handle it. It's not that they don't like it, it's because they can't handle it, because the Pantanal forces you to take the earplugs out. You're far from everything. You don't have urban noises. You don't hear cars. You don't hear anything. You only hear the sounds of nature. Then at night, that sky that looks like the heavens are going to fall on your head, where you can see and photograph the Milky Way. Then you hear the nighttime sounds of the animals, of nature. There are people who are afraid of this, people who have disconnected to the point of thinking it's dangerous. We must respect other species living with us. Since there are jaguars, you shouldn't walk alone.
Is anything more dangerous than man?
Isn't it? That's what I think. I always say man is the world's greatest predator. Isn't that what we're seeing in the Pantanal? I really say that because I know people who have had crises and I want to leave, I need to leave, they just didn't say it out loud. I need to remove carbon monoxide since the air is already pure. So it's an invitation to dive into your essence, because we are part of all this. We are a species in a context of improvement. We are on a planet sharing the same space. And then we forgot about that because we think we own everything, that we can use it all and fix it when it breaks. But nature is showing us that's not the case. In the Pantanal, I know all the Brazilian biomes. For me, the Pantanal is the place that invites you to reflect the most in every way. Because of the abundance of life, you realize how small you are.
A philosophy originates in the Pantanal.
I say that you either become pantanalized or not. I invite my friends, let's get pantanalized. What does it mean to get pantanalized? 1. Forget about having your hair done. Forget about being all neat and tidy. You're going to sweat a lot because it's really hot. You're going to let yourself go. There are people for whom their image is very important, and you're going to break that down. There's no use. You're going to step somewhere that will get your shoes wet, or there will be mud and your car will get stuck. You will, or maybe there's a lot of dust. You'll end up with a layer, a mask of dust on you. That's another thing. Cell phone and internet service aren't always available in some places. Even though nowadays you have technologies that let you access satellites, not every place has that technology.
Some people freak out about that.
Right, girl? I love it when my phone doesn't ring. It's nice, isn't it? I get so happy. Wow, really? Happy, Triv. There are such places.
That's why you agreed not to bring your phone, right?
When he came up to me and asked, where's your phone? When I said, oh, it's already in my bag. I love it. I do. When I'm off work, I put my phone in a drawer. When I get home at night, I leave it in the drawer and only check it 3 days later. Friends, I'm sorry.
I have a problem and often forget things because I get into trouble.
But it's not good. It's not good to feel your friends, you children, me, son and family and environment. The cell phone, it takes you away. The connection disconnects you.
But then you got here. When did it click for you and you said, I want to stay here?
Man, it was like that. There are a bunch of really crazy things.
Some in the middle.
There are. I met my son's father here. That's how it was. I was supposed to stay for 3 years and I did. It's not easy living here, okay, Rodrigo? Midwesterners, especially from Mato Grosso do Sul, are quite suspicious. Letting someone into your home like this is reserved for friends.
The girl from Espiritu Santo appeared on television, Morena.
Right, not just on television, but also, who are you? Whose child are you? Anyway, I'm the daughter of my father and my mother from Cachora do Abriminim, and I never cared much about things. I was also never very attached to vanity or appearances. Never. We've known each other for many years. I'm not the type who gets hung up on whether I'm fat, whether I'm thin, if my hair is done, if I'm wearing fake eyelashes. I don't care about any of that.
But that's part of your authenticity.
Right, but doesn't that bother people?
It never bothered me. That's cute. I feel the opposite. I think it shows your truth, right?
A lot of people, not you, but when you don't fit into the box, when you're not the same, you bother people.
Has Globo called you yet? Hey, Cláudia, put on your makeup.
Make it look good. There was even a boss who said, can you comb your hair? I said, man, I don't have a brush. I don't have one. That's just how it is. I gained weight because I love cooking. I'm Italian, Sorry, that's just the way it is.
When they said that to you, what did you say?
I would say, okay.
Okay, but I never do it.
And especially in the Pantanal, I got tired of taking off my boots and working barefoot. So I would wear pants that were much longer than my feet. That way, during filming, my feet wouldn't show. It happened once on Globo and Porta, both in the Pantanal. It was extremely hot, so I took off my boots. I knew the area, so there was no risk of snakes or anything. And then the shot would show my long pants and just my toes sticking out like this. So my boss said, "You were barefoot, let's cut that shot," and that's it. Even now, after filming documentaries, I still tend to ask the cameraman if I can jump in the water. I would say, "Are you going to use me?" "No, I'm not going there. Look, it's me." How beautiful you printed it.
It's nice to see a printed photo, isn't it?
I love it. We feel more connected, right?
This was in a news story, yes.
That was on GLO Bio Reporter about the Pantanal soap opera we worked on. GLO Bio Reporter, man, it was hilarious filming in that heat. December, this is at Rio Negro at Barranco Alto Farm. And then I said, "Oh, guys, I'm sorry. The pants I wear are those with a zipper on the thigh that turn into shorts." Then I said, "Excuse me, I'm going for a swim." And it was so interesting because I dove in and stayed in the water. Right after Papinha, who was the director of the soap opera, passed by on a stand-up paddle. He only called me Juma, and I called him Old Man of the River. He said, "Juma, are you taking a bath?" Rephrase and shorten the text by up to 33%. Keep all proper names and places. Retain original speaker's perspective. Ensure grammatical correctness. Only shorten. No additions or inferences. I asked, "Are you leaving the set?" "I'm just heading over and will return soon." He used the stand-up paddle to relax. I do that often. Rodrigo still does, anytime. Rio, of course, the Rio I know is better because I already know who I'm going to meet in there. Right next to it were giant otters, little alligators, and piranhas. I know who's there.
The dangerous guy in this scene here,
Man.
the alligator won't reach you.
Because there's a way to enter the water.
Oh, you know how to dodge alligators? How does that work?
You can't jump into the water here like in the ocean. Forget dog paddling and kicking your feet when swimming. Many animals are attracted by the vibrations. When you splash around in the water, they'll investigate, thinking it's a school of fish. Everything moves wildly, much like Midwest winds, because they assume it's fish. Piranhas are attracted by the vibrations, by the waves, so you go in calmly, you know? Go in gently with your foot like this, so you don't step on a stingray. You drag your foot like this for the stingray, no, and that's it. Now, obviously, in the Amazon, I avoid swimming. If there are blue alligators, I can't deal with them. Pantanal alligators are much calmer.
This is Pantanal with beautiful landscapes.
No, my friend, this is beautiful.
It's beautiful. That's what I wanted.
That's it. Look, turn it around because it's upside down. It's wrong. That's it. Look.
Put on your glasses.
That's at Rio da Praça.
So this reveals the dirt, right?
Girl, that broke my heart. That's at Rio da Prata, which happened in 2020, 2019 to 2020, because just so people understand, it's beautiful. Jardim Serra da Bodoquena is in the highlands, which we call the plateau, and there it's influenced by the Cerrado and the Atlantic forest. And the rivers from the highlands form the Pantanal, the rivers of the Pantanal. So they start up here, go down and reach the plains. This river is part of the Miranda River Basin. This river is the Prata River, which is the translucent river. I've already dived in this river with scuba gear, and even 10 meters underwater, you had visibility as if you were outside. It was the most beautiful thing, was. Because for about the past 10 years or so, land use in the region has changed. It was an established pasture where cattle were raised, so everything was already fine. The pastures, many with contour lines to hold the rainwater, and then the crops came.
Why is there mud in the clean water here?
The rainwater that ran off, that flowed over the bare soil of the fields. There's a period, everyone talks about it. In Brazil, no-till farming means the soil isn't left bare. After harvesting soybeans, the ground remains covered. After harvest, the field may stay empty for a while before planting the next crop. Sometimes planting happens immediately, depending on the region. Otherwise, it remains empty. There are some necessary techniques, but the soil is left exposed. In this case, the soil is exposed in October and November, which is the rainy season here. Then it hits, runs off, and settles.
That didn't happen when you first got here.
Not at all. What changed? You used to have water that would get dirty, get cloudy, like we say about the rivers. But after 3, 4, 5 hours, the river would settle and get clear again. So it was natural. Water that runs over vegetation or soil will carry dirt into the river. That's normal anywhere. The difference is the amount of sediment being carried and the time it takes to clear up. A lot is coming. So why is that? Because there was a change in land use, there was a huge increase in crops in the Bonito Jardim Bodoquena region, which completely changed the economic profile of land use in the area. And of course, it impacts the crystal clear rivers. There are measures being taken, there are a lot of people making contour lines, there are rules being implemented, but all it takes is a heavy rain and everything gets cloudy. I advise my friends not to visit Bonito during certain seasons.
This is new. Before, you could come anytime.
Before, you could come at any time.
Now, because
I say it, not the people, right? I say it because the people from the city want to sell the package. You agree? I say it, okay? During the rainy season, you risk experiencing an extreme event with much heavier rain than usual. Everything came together. It's a combination of factors. And then your water will get cloudy. You'll spend 1, 2, 3 days with brown water and you won't see anything.
a few years ago, when I came here, if I'm not mistaken, it must have been 2015, 2016.
You came to launch the book, right, Maria?
You told me that you had gone to Bonito, that you were really shocked at the time because there was water happening there.
That was it.
That was it.
That was it. What was happening? There was an investigation by the State Public Prosecutor's Office about the turbidity of the water and this issue of land use. There's a region that we call Banhado, which isn't exactly a swamp, but it's a wetland. It's a type of vegetation that filters rainwater and supplies rivers. This wetland was being drained, really drained, to dry it out, to plant soybeans.
Basically, water meant for the river was diverted to the soybeans.
Or else it didn't stay in the soil. They made what we call drains, which are large channels. There were more than 40 kilometers of channels.
Artificial ones made for irrigation.
Not for irrigation, but to dry. Really? Because then you pull that water that was in the vegetation into the canal, and here it dries out, it's flat, you plant soybeans on top, and then... This is the Rio da Prata wetland, which once supplied clean water to part of the Rio da Prata. And besides that, you had other livestock areas that had been converted to farmland without doing what's necessary, like contouring. Roads were opened. It was once a narrow livestock road only a pickup could use, but now it must fit large machines like combine harvesters. And they were built without drains, without care, so all that water, a combination of things, and then you have to study. I have to base myself on something. I'm not just reporting a problem, but asking why and what's happening. I relied on the Public Prosecutor's Office process, which had 3 expert reports from 3 highly respected professionals throughout Brazil, showing the problem with the drains, the roads, and the crops. This public civil action was ongoing, and it was just 1 expert report, and it had more than 1,000 pages. Rodrigo, wasn't there a requirement here in the state for an impact study or a containment project when you were going to change land use? Let me give you an example. I've had pasture for 30 years. It's consolidated, 30 years of pasture grass on my property. It's all good. I made contour lines. Everything is nice and neat. I want to switch to farming. You have to level the soil. You have to widen the road. Farming is very different from livestock. There wasn't a state requirement for you to have an agronomist to make your project so you could plant properly, make the contour lines, do all that. There wasn't anything like that. After the news report, it was very interesting. The report aired on Sunday. The state legislation that required, in the case of conversion, a whole study. I believe it was published Thursday before the report.
Because they already knew about the report.
I requested an interview with the state government to highlight the issue.
So you created an important law.
That was one of several that Our Lady of Penha reported.
Charcoal plants also started.
Our charcoal plant was in '99. I reported it on Journal National, then the state government. That's why I say sometimes the authorities respond, when it comes out.
Right, when it's published, no?
You have that pressure, and then they created a situation. That Journal National report was very interesting because I went to the Pantanal in Aquidauana. There's a road, which is a state road that we call Estrada do Aterro, and on both sides there was only 1 charcoal plant. I counted 1,000 ovens. So everything is illegal, not authorized. Why? Because you have to think that the law has 2 sides, right? It's really crazy, but it was just 1 authorized and there was no inspection. For example, you authorize 10 and the guy sets up 30. If you authorize clearing 2,000, the clearing is authorized, or the cutting of isolated native trees. The law allows this suppression. You have a certain percentage that you have to maintain on your property depending on the biome you're in. So the problem is that you have to monitor if the person is doing what they said they were going to do and what you actually authorized. Normally,
At the time,
it didn't happen. Now people are a bit more scared, but we still showed it. And when you do vegetation suppression, by law, you have to give a destination to the piles, to what's left, which is usually charcoal. So that's why the charcoal plant was authorized, but not in that quantity. And then I wanted to understand where that charcoal was going. Then people don't go to steel mills in Minas Gerais. The crazy one here writes to the government of Minas asking how much native charcoal was coming in to supply the steel mills' furnaces in Minas. And then they sent it to me.
it was a lot of what?
I don't remember exactly, but it was something like that. Millions of cubic meters of native charcoal coming from Mato Grosso do Sul to Minas.
And what did that mean?
Our Pantanal and Cerrado are being turned into charcoal for mining and iron production. Then I ran into the Minas government and said, look, your native charcoal is coming from here. Did you know that? Whether they like it or not, these steel mills sell commodities and must assure buyers worldwide they're not causing much destruction. It does destroy, it really does, because, girl, honestly, it destroys. But anyway,
Trying to mitigate it, they're burning the Pantanal and the Cerrado.
right, so what did I do? I covered the story for Jornal Nacional. Then the government of Minas started requiring the purchase of certified charcoal to check if it was from planted forests or not. Mato Grosso do Sul fully banned charcoal production in the Pantanal, including Bonito.
Also banned everything and never returned. No.
So
Another success.
there are my little scavenger kids, the ones I mentioned on Jornal de Globo, right? I've always been really bothered walking through this Pantanal and seeing how invisible people are. People often think of the Pantanal's wildlife and lush nature, but some have lived there for over 8,000 years.
Do you know what the population size is in the Pantanal?
We have three big cities, Corumba here in Mato Grosso do Sul in the southern Pantanal, where we have 65% of.
What we can call the Pantanal?
No, we're in the Cerrado where it occurs. The Pantanal begins here at Huana and extends toward Corumba.
Corumba is Pantanal.
Right in the middle completely. Corumba is one of Brazil's largest municipalities. I don't know the exact number, but it's not much since Mato Grosso do Sul has only 2 million people.
But outside the cities, there are a lot of people.
Oh yes, you have the farms, you have the villages, you have the indigenous territories, you have many demarcated indigenous territories that are inside the Pantanal. You have Terina, you have Cajuel. The Cajuel indigenous territory covers 530,000 hectares demarcated during Dom Pedro II's reign after the Paraguayan War.
He was a complete environmentalist.
It was because of him the Cajuel received a vast territory he marked and gifted to them for their service as the Guaicurus in the war. So you have Terena inside the Pantanal. Even within the biome, you have Terena, you have Guato, you have Cajuel, you have a small piece in the part closer to here. Already reaching the transition to the Cerrado, you have Guarani Kaiowá. So it's a place that has always had
Many indigenous people.
many. In my book, there's a part where I say that the Spaniards, when they first arrived here, they must have been really shocked because they were at that time. The first European expedition that passed through the Pantanal region was Aleixo Garcia. That was in the early decades of the 1500s, around 1530, something like that. They were searching for gold before discovering Potosí in Bolivia, still chasing the El Dorado legend. They would go up the Prata Basin, go up from down there, enter through the Paraguay River to come out up there and reach Bolivia. And then what happened? We had the Zarais, we had the Payagua, who were the canoeing indigenous people that were exterminated by order of the Portuguese crown. Yes, sir, not the Brazilian crown. At the time, it was the Brazilian Empire. In the 19th century, we had the Orujones exterminated, all exterminated. Among the Payagua, we have almost nothing left of them.
So you're saying that several indigenous populations were exterminated, right?
We had what was called a just war in the 19th century because, like, in the 1700s, back then, this was all Spain. Remember the Treaty of Tordesillas? Portugal only controlled the coast and captaincies. The rest belonged to Spain. But then we had the Iberian Union when the two crowns, Portugal and Spain, joined together. And that made the Portuguese, being very clever, say, since it's all the same kingdom now, I'm going to leave the coast and head inland. Those were the expeditions. We started with the expeditions coming before to conquer, to conquer.
to exterminate.
The Jesuits were already here. One arrived here coming from the coast, Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, which are the expeditions. And the Jesuits arrived here because they didn't only come to Brazil. They came to Paraguay, to Bolivia, to Argentina, and they started setting up the missions that at the time they called reductions. So here in our region, all the way down to the south of Brazil, just in this area, there were more than 35 settlements. There, where does the year show? Today it was a city called Santiago de Jerez of indigenous people. There was Itatim, which was a port, and there you had a Jesuit mission with indigenous people who were catechized, but the Jesuits weren't able to catechize them. Neither the Guacurus nor the Payagua, only the Terena, who were kinder and less warlike. The Guarani, once great warriors, became so exhausted that they gave up. But the Guacurus and Payagua didn't. So what happened next? In 1700, gold was discovered in Mato Grosso, specifically in Vila Bela da Santíssima Trindade and Cuiabá, leading the Empire of Brazil to create the province of Mato Grosso. But how was the gold transported out? It went down the Cuiabá River, which reached the Paraguay River. From the Paraguay River, it entered the Taquari River. From the Taquari to the Coxim. From the Coxim, it took the Camapuá River, then the Tietê River, and finally arrived in Sao Paulo.
Does your necklace have any meaning?
My friends from Xingu made this for me.
From where in Xingu?
The Wara made and sent it to me. I'm all dressed up.
You have a connection with indigenous peoples?
I love my house. It's filled with paddles hanging everywhere. They're paddles I use, buy, or receive as gifts. There's a beautiful jaguar there because it's my alter ego, right? A jaguar, Juma.
A stuffed jaguar?
No, a wooden jaguar on my oars. Oh, help. I hate stuffed animals and the museums that display them. It's okay. It's part of science. It's necessary. But for me, it breaks my heart. But I have a lot of things from them because I respect them. I think I need to show my son, my grandchildren, where the roots of my people are, you know? I have Italian ancestry, my immigrants. All of us have that in Espírito Santo a lot, but I need to plant these. And Brazilians aren't proud. Brazilians sweep the indigenous issue under the rug.
There's a part of Brazil that hates indigenous people. Unfortunately, that's true.
But you have to study history, you have to study what this place was like before 1500.
They don't like to study anything. There's a certain widespread and intentional ignorance.
It takes work. It's like raising a child. Everyone says, wow, your child is so well behaved. But only we know how many times you have to say the same thing 10 times. You don't let them just sit in front of the television or on their phone. To be an electronic babysitter, you have to make them study with you. You have to sit down, go to parent-teacher meetings at school. You can't just delegate your child's upbringing to the school or to a nanny when your child is an adult. And it worked. Wow, that's cool. I know me and the dad, you too. So this thing about not wanting to, we reconnected, we came back together. Here, the lack of interest is simply that. Because I remember it like it was today when my son was very little, learning about the history of Brazil at school. He came home all happy. Mommy, the person who discovered Brazil was named Pedro. My son's name is Pedro too. I looked at him and asked, what do you mean? He said, Mom, I'm learning Brazil's history. And the discoverer was Pedro. Let's talk, let's change that verb. He asked, why, Mommy? I said, no. Pedro was the one who came to colonize Brazil. The person who discovered Brazil. There's no one who discovered Brazil. Before Pedro's crew arrived, you had to, so I started telling him the little stories. Even the Chinese have already passed along our coast. Vikings have already come to the Americas. Today, with the melting ice in Greenland and Canada, you're finding Viking villages from around 1100. So is the idea that Christopher Columbus discovered America outdated?
Isn't it?
And then I went to my son's school, and my son, oh Jesus, my son. The next day at school, he said, Teacher, my mom said you're teaching it wrong.
Then he caused trouble.
He caused trouble, so I said, no, teacher, I'm sorry, but I find it odd my son is learning what I did 30 years ago. Knowledge evolves, history changes. You discover something here, I follow you on your journeys. I think it's wonderful every time you bring something new. Within a context where for more than 2,000 years people think it's an absolute truth and we know it's not. A lot of things keep being rewritten, so, you know. Regarding the indigenous issue, when I lived in Espiritu Santo, I didn't have this awareness because there we hardly have any indigenous communities, indigenous territories, or indigenous lands.
No indigenous ancestors.
No, there aren't. I even did that DNA test.
It's more European.
It's not more European, but I feel my heart and soul are already settled here. If reincarnation exists, I don't know about people, but I think I have one foot in the forest. Right? Yeah, I think I was already a little witch.
You know, telling it like it is, right?
Or maybe I was a little animal, I think, because that's how it feels to me. I'm not having this conversation with you just because we're talking here, but because thousands of people who follow you are going to watch us. I have a passion for nature, and I learned that from my parents, as I mention in the introduction of my book. I say that the world prescribes sustainability, that it's the embrace of the forest. I picked it up instinctively from my parents. We never had the money to travel to big places, so we didn't go on vacation far from home. My parents were like that, asking, where are we going this weekend, and deciding to just go camping. We would go camping on the beach, or we would go hiking in the forest, or we would go fishing either in the sea or in the river. And while this was happening, my dad and my mom were listening to this. Oh, that's a kororo, that's a I don't know what. So this contact with nature was taught to me since I was a baby. I did the same with my son, who now lives outside Brazil. Last weekend, he hiked 13 kilometers in a Montreal forest.
He lives in Canada.
He lives in Montreal and is doing his Doctor of Philosophy there.
How old is he?
Pedro is 23. Rodrigo isn't. He's a chemist doing his Doctor of Philosophy. In his free time, he hikes in the woods, which worries his mom because of bears. He replied, no, Mom, I have bear spray. I told him it only works within 2 meters.
You know, I learned something about bears. Polar bears. Not there, right?
There are several, right? They have grizzlies there, not polar bears. Gray and black bears are closer to the parks, right? That chase people. They're scary, right?
Because in the North Pole, I learned when I went there that you carry a gun with 6 bullets, right? That's what fits in your gun there. With 5, you try to kill the bear. If it attacks, it's self-defense. The 6th is for you to use on yourself if caught.
Oh, really?
Because a bear attack is so cruel. The pain is unbearable, so this is a common practice in Norway.
That must really hurt, right?
How brutal a bear attack is.
I love bears. I spoke with my son. He's been there for years. I really need to see a bear in the wild. Then he says, Mom, you know it's not a stuffed animal, right? I said I want to join a research project. Even if I have to ask the researcher myself, I want to see one before I die.
You will see one, you will.
A polar bear, I want a brown bear. In North Vancouver, there's a species called the ghost bear. It's a color like kind of sand-colored. It's not white or gray. It only occurs in that region. I also want a wolf. I even got a new tattoo of a little wolf here.
Do you have any of a jaguar?
Not yet, but I'm getting it on my back. I chose a photo from my friend Luciano Candizani. I haven't done it because it's going to hurt a lot, so I keep getting the little ones until I get used to the pain. There's going to be a jaguar and a blue macaw.
And have you ever been threatened literally like, we're going to kill you?
Not because of my environmental activism. When I first got here, guys, that was in 1998, in the last century. I made a report on Journal Nacional about the cocaine trafficking route through the Pantanal. At that time, it worked like this. Pickup trucks were stolen in the southeast and Midwest. Many times they would bring the pickup truck, cross the Pantanal with it, and exchange it for cocaine in Bolivia. And for them to travel those 500 and something kilometers inside the Pantanal, you go through the farms. It's not always a public road. Sometimes it's a little road inside the farm. The vehicle thieves had created a system. They had made signs. They painted on the gates, on some trees very close to the roads. Blue arrows were what you followed during the flood season. If you followed those little arrows, you wouldn't get your car stuck. You'd be in Bolivia with the yellow ones during the dry season.
Taking a stolen car?
A stolen car to transport cocaine. And then I found out that there was involvement of police officers from Mato Grosso do Sul, not always escorting, but sometimes ignoring them, making it easier for these cars to pass through. And at the time, this was in 1998, at the time it was called the Doff case. After my report, 40 police officers were arrested.
Wow, and how many wanted to kill you?
I'm not sure how many, but one did say it out loud, so I had protection from the federal police for a while, but it still happened. It was something very intense, very eye to eye. We were in court, they were giving their testimony, and this particular person looked me in the eye and said, "I know where you live."
Right in front of the judge.
Inside the courtroom.
The judge didn't do anything.
No, he died after the car accident.
The judge is shortly after,
I think it was a little over a year later.
and he connects the two cases.
I'm not sure, but it's normal. I can't prove it or say for sure, but he died there. The process was declared null at the final stage due to procedural errors, so they had to redo it. The guys were released. I even saw some of them on the street again. I said, "Oh my God, is it the good or bad side?" That's just what I say. My guardian angel has 200 wings. I've always been honest, even with criminals. To look them in the eye and say in the interview I'm doing with you, the part that's going in that I'm recording with you is this, this, and this. Like looking them in the eye. And nothing ever happened to me. I never had protection. I was single at the time, young, had just arrived.
I was scared to death.
Man, I think God protects the ignorant children and drunk people. I think I was ignorant. I was just arriving. I didn't even know how big the whole border thing was. I knew about the law as much as a little rooster. I was really tough. I said, "Oh, nothing's going to happen." And really, I think that later on, I even ran into the guy who threatened me on the street years and years later.
And then I confronted him about it.
I looked at him and asked, "Are you still going to kill me?" He said, "It's nothing, Gaigher. I already forgot." I found it on the sidewalk.
This guy wasn't arrested.
He was involved in several federal police operations, but was always released. I don't ask because I can't answer you.
And I'm not going to ask either.
I think it's good. I used to take a stand, Rodrigo. I always took a stand. I never accepted it. I left my homeland. I left my family back in Cachora, Tapimirim, in Espírito Santo, to live on the other side of Brazil. I didn't come for nothing. I didn't come here to have fun. If given a mission, I complete it. That's how I am, like the military says. And when I got to know this place, when I saw this, I said, people, Brazilians, I need to help so that Brazilians can know more about this. I have to share what I see, love, or get upset about. I can't just act normal. Every topic mattered, not just the complaints. Rodrigo, because I've always sought the light at the end of the tunnel. I've never liked making a complaint without showing something that could be an alternative to that. And for every problem, there's someone who's already working on a solution for it. Thank you.
And that was the question I wanted to ask you. After everything you've seen happen to the Pantanal, is there still hope for it?
Look, at this event I was at in Belo Horizonte, the PUC museum director, Paprowski, a biologist and researcher I admire, said something that caught my attention. There is a way, I think it's a Norwegian researcher who described the types of people. There's the utopian optimist who believes everything is wonderful like Pollyanna. Then there's the rational optimist who says, I keep fighting because I believe that something can get better. There's the rational pessimist like, I don't think it's going to work out, but I'll keep fighting. And there's the catastrophic pessimist like, it's all over. I'm going to live well, take what I can from this moment and plan it and let the rest go to hell. I fluctuate between being a rational optimist and a rational pessimist because there are rational moments.
You're wrong all the time.
No, because there are moments when I see people fighting, working on scientific research, people managing to do a lot of things, some laws that are passed, and governments acting in an interesting way. So I keep seeing institutions, professional associations. I see a lot of producers, a lot of farmers who are trying to have sustainable production right here in Mato Grosso do Sul. So there are good people working out there. I'm glad it worked out. We restored the Tavo River, saved the species, and now he's producing sustainably with a larger reserve on his farm. He created the biodiversity credit mechanism, which is so the guy doesn't destroy because there's a certain rich biodiversity there. He doesn't destroy it, but profits from it, which I think is important because preservation should be rewarded. I think it's absurd in Brazilian law that the person who preserves their land pays the same rural land tax as the person who destroys everything. There has to be recognition for the good people, you know? And sometimes you see it. He approved deforesting 20,000 hectares.
Let the herd through.
Let the herd through. We heard that day of fire when everything burns in Pará, Mato Grosso do Sul, Mato Grosso, São Paulo. Then you say, I go there, I get sad, my gastritis flares up, my cortisol goes through the roof. Oh my God, I'm going to move to another country. I'm not staying here.
Have you ever thought about leaving?
Oh, 1,550,000 times because of these things, we have the best place in the world to live. Rodrigo, it's a place where you have biodiversity, where you have water, where you have food. You have people who are hardworking. Brazilian people are really nice. Brazilian people in general, the great majority. And then you have mismanagement, political misconduct, or even people who believe in things they receive on WhatsApp and that becomes an absolute truth, and who keep spreading hate speech. You know, you don't have to think like I do, but I need to respect what you think, and you need to respect me, and we'll live just fine. Recently in Brazil, families have split over politics. Some back Bolsonaro, others Lula, and end up fighting and disliking each other.
Like they're the only ones that exist, right?
Do you understand now what happens here? This is only a hypothesis. Cláudia, Gaigher, when you have this kind of hate speech, of segmentation, of separation, you open the way for those with bad intentions to gain ground. Do you agree? That's it. And I think that's really stupid. I can't accept that my people don't have the reasoning to understand that this polarization has a purpose. To make people less informed. I'm not saying you must choose A or B, but you should think critically about what's happening.
And between your optimism and your pessimism, what do you conclude? Is there hope for the Pantanal?
No, not the way I knew it.
It won't come back.
The only one we'll have is me, okay? There's no scientific basis for this. It's a matter of perception because, like, we don't have the rains we used to have. We don't have the floods we need anymore. From the Pantanal, we lack it, leading to species loss. For example, research from the Tamandua Institute, a study I followed for years. Flavia Miranda, she has the Orphans of the Pantanal project. She takes care of baby anteaters, victims of fires and road accidents. So they stay there for a year or two rehabilitating the little animal, put a small backpack with signals so you can monitor it, which I followed, right? At least 5 that were rehabilitated and released. That work takes a lot of money to accomplish. They died from pesticide poisoning in the Pantanal.
Really?
Not even in the fire. They didn't survive the flames. They survived the highway and died poisoned by pesticides. At least 5. Do you get our point? So what should I say about this? Brazilians and all of humanity must choose. We've reached a decisive moment. What do I want for myself? What legacy am I going to leave for my descendants? And it's a legacy, isn't it? Oh, but I don't have land, but I'm not a producer, but I'm not an industrialist, but I'm not a politician. You have the power to choose in your decisions and your child's education. So what will you choose? Where does your food come from? Is it from deforested Amazon land for cattle or from the Pantanal? Does the food you eat come from local production? Are you supporting family farming or large-scale agriculture that uses chemicals? People say buying organic is expensive, but that's not always true. You have a beautiful backyard in this house, Rodrigo. How many people, whether from a wealthier economic class or not, have a backyard without even a single kale plant? I have a friend who's a landscaper, and he says in the 19th century, up until the 19th century, having an orchard at home to grow your own food was once considered fancy. Later, the trend shifted to exotic plants, so now you see large, impressive backyards. Landscaping, but not one jabuticaba tree. Know what I mean? That's how I see it. For me, it's the little things. And when I talk about the Pantanal, which I don't think will come back because the Pantanal is a sediment basin, it's a huge basin. It needs it. It's dependent on the Amazon and the Cerrado. Saying it's the most preserved biome in Brazil or that 80% is preserved is pointless, since that's relative if you don't actually have it. Rain from the Amazon, including the flying rivers, comes from the south and southwest regions of the biome and forest. Other countries show the same deforestation pattern. I was just in Jacareacanga, southwest Para, right where the water originates. Over here, chains for farming and a bunch of dredges in the river to extract gold. Did you understand? Then you walk through the Cerrado, you go for a walk in the Cerrado, and you see endless fields of crops, not a single tree. So this way, you're killing it. The Pantanal has farms owned by friends of mine. 10 years ago, they used to dig wells during the dry season, which is normal there, but wells were at 30 meters. They used to find water on the same farm. Last year, they went down to 190, 200 meters and didn't find any water. Do you realize how serious this is?
Serious.
So people see it. I take a picture of the Pantanal, everything looks green, and then they think, oh, the Pantanal has recovered.
So the idea that the Pantanal regenerates itself is actually a fallacy then.
Totally, because it's only a relative recovery. On the surface, it's not like that. Those of us who live here truly see and understand because we know this place. After the fire, the landscape changes, so when you return, you notice the difference. You see the resurgence of invasive species which are more resistant, so they end up dominating over the others. You see, there are no more thin trees because after a fire, it takes 30 years for trees to regrow. The manduvi, the main nesting tree for hyacinth macaws, takes 80 years to grow. If it burns, it's gone and will take 80 years to regrow if planted, since the seed bank in the soil is gone. It burned to ash. How awful. Yes, it burned over a meter underground.
So it's hard to be optimistic.
You can't, but people think it's beautiful because it's green. But it's just grass, you know? You don't have the biodiversity or the environmental services that the set of species provided before the fire. In 2024, fires burned the Pantanal area where Cayman and the Arara Azul Institute's base are located, which is the world's largest hyacinth macaw breeding center. It's amazing because the farm's owner is a great partner to the researcher. Roberto Clabin opened Neva's gates 37 years ago. And it's like, you can research whatever you want. I'll give you all the support you need. That's amazing. The guy owns the farm, opened the gates, and today it's the largest breeding center in the world. Last year, a fire that came from the neighbor burned 80% of the farm. 80%. Neva and her team had to gather manduvi nuts, the small nuts hyacinth macaws eat, from unburned areas to feed the macaws for months.
But many died.
Died. The macaws didn't die because they managed to fly away. They went to neighboring farms that didn't catch fire. But it interfered with reproduction because you lose the eggs, you lose the chicks that were already hatching. And the problem isn't during the fire. That's what people don't realize. The problem is after the fire passes and burns, it kills. But when the fire is over, there's no food. So predation, the chicks started to hatch predation. Animals climbed trees to eat monkeys, eating animals that had never entered a hyacinth macaw's nest before. They were going in to eat because there was no food.
Eat eggs or chicks?
Eat eggs, chicks. You also affect the species biologically, which is wild because it's not obvious. Here's an example, the blue macaw. Since the fires in 2019, chicks have been born with affected immunity. They are more fragile and some developed a wound in the cloaca and die because of it. It's tough. This has been happening since 2019. We're in 2025. You have the giant otter, which lost a reproductive year because of the fire. When you lose a reproductive year, you set the species back by 10 years.
It's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy. You have the tapir. Her pregnancy lasts 2 years. The giant armadillo takes 6 years to reach reproductive age. A baby was born every 3 years and died underground, unseen. Did you understand? Jaguar has been running a lot since last year and continues through 2024 from the fire onward. It was really beautiful to see that animal running. There was a jaguar, not a very famous one to us, but one we saw being born. Watched by researchers, she died trapped by fire and was burned to a crisp. What I mean is that we can't only pay attention when the tragedy is right in front of us, when it's before our eyes. We are already living with the human fingerprint on the devastation, and it's up to us to make decisions. When I say I don't think I'll ever see the Pantanal as I once did, neither will my son or grandchildren. I won't go to the Amazon. It's the same thing. I'm just coming back from Para, a place I knew where there used to be those giant Sumauma trees, giant angelum trees, and now it's just bare ground.
Does Conference of the Parties 30 mean anything to you? Do you have any expectations?
There are two things I really liked. One of them I just found out about recently. Well, I don't know if you can talk about it yet, but I'm going to say it because the president of IBAMA, Rodrigo Agostinho, told me. So if he said it, it's said. There are two Conference of the Parties, the Biodiversity Conference of the Parties and the Climate Conference of the Parties. The one that's happening in Belém is the Climate Conference of the Parties, the Biodiversity one. It happened last year. The last time was in Colombia, if I'm not mistaken, and before that it was in Canada. And they're different. The people who go here aren't always the same as the ones who go there. But I can't think about climate without thinking about biodiversity. No one can. For the first time in the history of these two Conference of the Parties, the whole group agreed to include biodiversity in the Climate Conference of the Parties. It's going to be in Belém. This is a huge step forward because in the Brazil Charter of Conference of the Parties 30, there will already be some decisions, I hope, related to biodiversity, which before only happened at the Biodiversity Conference of the Parties.
These are the main ones you expect.
We really need it. Then comes the second good news, which is the fund that Brazil created, which is TFFF, which is a terrible name. I can't say it. It's $1 billion. For tropical forests, not just Brazilian ones, but for tropical forests. Then everyone will ask, but why tropical forests and not other biomes? Because the tropical forest regulates the climate. It produces the rainwater that gets here. It's not the lungs of the world. So when you manage the tropical forest, which isn't adapted to fire, we return to the Cerrado and Savanna, both adapted to fire, and the Pantanal, which is somewhat resilient, but less so. So you need to care for the one that provides the water. So there are two paths that Brazil is following, which I think have fascinated me, and I believe we will be able to make progress. But I believe that at Conference of the Parties 30, we need to be a little more realistic with our goals. The possible absence of the United States could be very complicated.
But even if they come, they're already absent.
For a long time. But I think Brazil is managing to take on an interesting leading role in this gathering of wills so that something can be done. Because everyone is suffering all over the world, and we can't let just one particular group benefit from the rest and just turn off the airport lights and leave. So I think Brazilian research, the fact that it's in the Amazon, within the Amazon biome, is important. Also,
what are you doing after leaving Global Palestra?
Boy, look, was this career reorganization so difficult? I remember that we even talked about this before I left. We had talked, you were reorganizing yourself, you hadn't left yet either. And I left abruptly because it wasn't planned. It was a tough initial moment since it happened right after I left.
What year was it? What month?
2022, July 2022. My mother had just received a cancer diagnosis. It was very impactful for me personally, so it was very difficult. She ended up passing away a few months later.
During that time, your dismissal happened.
I left Television Morena. I think I left about a week before she had her surgery to remove her cancer, but it's okay. God is in control. It's over now. And then came 2023. It was a very difficult year because it was a year of mourning, of loss. My mother died on Christmas Day having breakfast with me. She was cured, but she had a heart attack. It was something like that. I said, girl, I even looked at her and said, damn, that's messed up. You know, when you look and say, hey, so 2023, it was a year like that, but I had a lot of support from the research institutes that hired me to do strategic consulting. I was hired to make 2 documentaries about the Atlantic forest, one on Serra da Bocaina National Park and another on Itatiaia National Park, which was really cool. I started a documentary that I'm finishing now in this region, in the southwest of the Amazon. Regarding the Amazon, the main issue is no longer the fires, but now mining. I mean, just when you think you can breathe, something comes and knocks you down. And this documentary should be ready by the middle of next year. So I had like a lot of new things came up that I was able to do, things I couldn't do when I was tied to television. I love lectures. People often ask what they are.
Environmental themes, Pantanal.
Environmental themes, not just Pantanal. That's what's interesting. I've been invited to talk about the issue of scientific communication in several places. Because I always argue that scientists need to know how to communicate so that their knowledge can be spread. My dream is for scientific knowledge to be a topic at the bar. You need to have friends at the bar and we talk, because that's when information really gets diversified. Trainings, lots and lots of trainings, even corporate trainings, because people need to learn how to speak, how to communicate. It's not media training. I do media training when they want. But I think assertive communication, empathetic communication is about knowing how to be a leader. It's about knowing how to communicate with those around you. Did you get that? I've been giving a lot of lectures, consulting for these university research institutes, man. Universities hiring me to do communication consulting for certain projects.
So you didn't stop?
No, I didn't stop. I'm rarely on video because I'm always busy. And even though I love Instagram, I sometimes forget to post, but I really do enjoy it. Then something happens and people call me, Gaia, aren't you going to say something? I say, oh, okay. Then I go research, I check it out, and then I speak up. We had a terrible case here of a man who was killed by a jaguar, and it became a problem. Jaguars eat people, I said. We eat people and animals, right? I agree, everyone who is a carnivore eats meat, so you have to understand what happened there. It was an isolated incident. It was one. Then there was crisis management, a lot of fake news in all the media outlets. The jaguar became the wicked witch of the West. People started chasing the jaguar. We worked behind the scenes with the researchers who told me when television channels or newspapers called. I told them to proceed with this narrative. I took part in a seminar. It was held here by the Agriculture Federation itself, Save Our Souls Pantanal on Safarka. Several research institutes joined the Agriculture Federation to manage this issue of living with big cats, in our case, the jaguar. That's when I say things have changed. When would the Agriculture Federation ever invite a scientist, a researcher, or an environmentalist? Me as a journalist, so we can sit down and find a way to manage the crisis. No, it's never one against the other. This convergence is happening today, and I think it's a good path. That's it. I'm here writing. Now I'm working on children's books, but I don't have a publisher yet, Rodrigo.
A children's book about?
It really bothers me that Brazilian children only like and read a lot of little books. With African fauna, every child knows elephants, giraffes, hippos. I agree. When my son was young, he struggled with my frequent absences. So when I returned from trips, I turned my stories into something for him. A short story to help him understand what I was doing, which I wrote, kept secret, and shared with Pedro and his friends. A while back, some friends suggested I bring that back, so I started compiling them and wrote 2 more very short stories. My idea is to make a children's collection with little 20-page books illustrated and always with correct scientific information, but in a child-friendly language, because that's what Pedro loved. Now my nieces and granddaughters like it too. I realized the language worked, so I added more. One book is about fire, another explains where water comes from.
They're already finished?
I'm finishing the water one, the others are done, but I lack a publisher and illustrators.
Do you want to do that?
I don't have it if I record.
That's not the goal.
I don't want it, but I need a contract with a publisher and to pay an illustrator. It's ready. I just need publishers.
Let's actually wait. Please, what's the best way for people to contact you?
Look, there's my Instagram, but if you want to put it down here, you can put my phone number, which is WhatsApp. It's always that.
And through Instagram as well.
My email and Instagram are the best ways to reach me. My email is claudiagaigher@gmail.com, and here's my phone number. 67 Mato Grosso do Sul, 9,811,812. 12 prank calls aren't cool.
We're here, we're in a place, right? This city has recently entered the Catholic map.
Oh, Carlos.
And I wanted to know how you felt about these events, if you got involved in any way, if you were interested.
I was very happy because the chapel of Igrejinha, where the miracle happened, I don't know the boy's mother who was the miracle. I don't know Matthias personally, but I've already been to that chapel. I've already done a report there. I've gone live from there. I know the whole community. And ever since the process of beatification and canonization began, I've always followed it. I think it's beautiful because, first of all, it's the city where I live, so it's people that, who knows, I might run into them at the supermarket and not even realize it. Matthias helped in the process of recognizing a saint, according to Carla Kut. A young man that I think is really cool. I think that's really cool because everyone is talking about it. He's the saint in jeans who used a notebook. I even posted about it on my Instagram, but it's interesting for us to find holiness in others. I'm not saying that everything is perfect. I have all my reservations about my faith, about the church, a church where there are men, there are flaws. I usually say I like having faith because it's my choice and I enjoy it. I love JC. He's an amazing guy and my buddy. We're both here. I talk, argue, and complain, and I love it. And Carla Cut. For me, it's a fascinating time for the Catholic Church, since it wasn't just him, there was also the Blessed One,
Pierre-Georges Frassati,
who was also a young man who, in his own way, went after the things he believed in and was charitable. So for me, these two new saints, and in our case, Mato Grosso do Sul, giving special mention to Campo Grande, Carla Cut, it's about showing that anyone can do good. You can live in holiness. And you don't have to stop going to parties. You don't have to stop going out, smoking your cigarette, drinking your beer, I don't know, listening to loud music, dating, because the saints in the past were all too saintly. The guy was chaste. It was that thing. I love it. Saint Francisco gave up everything. It was a different time for humanity. These two, including Carla Cut, are from our generation. His father even gave an interview the day my son died. So many people came to the wake that I didn't even know what he did. I didn't know he was going to help a community, that he was going there to do something. I don't know what, that he would take his little friend and do things. So I believe we need a little more humanity, more empathy, you know, and stop wanting to post everything because people do good and then go there and take a picture. I'm donating a house. So for me,
it's already lost its meaning.
Already wanting, Holophot, already wanting. Oh, you're so nice. I have one of my tattoos here. In Latin, a Roman expression, acta non verba, do, don't talk. Why would I keep talking? What matters is the result of my actions. It's what good I can bring to you, what can be transformative for your life.
You've accomplished many good things in your career, not just a few.
Girl, everyone says that, you know. I don't even pay much attention to that.
Sometimes we don't even notice, right?
Do I notice?
I don't notice. There is your holiness.
Maybe not.
It was done well without realizing it.
Yeah, I think like, you know what I do, Rodrigo? We know each other. You know how I am. I want people to be happy, to find peace, and to be able to experience the best thing in the world, which is affection. Look, how long has it been since we last saw each other? More than 5 years, right? Something like that. But we're meeting as if you were my neighbor. Yes, with affection and care, the conversation. I'm happy you're doing well and back in Brazil doing so much. For me, it's the same. It nourishes me. It's not about money. I don't really know how to handle it or price my work. It's challenging. Girl, I get in trouble because of that, because it's never the first thing I think about. I've done a lot of work, even after leaving television and needing money. I did it without charging because the institute, whatever it was, didn't have any money. All right, I'll do it anyway. I went there and did it. The importance of that comes to light. So I believe that in our lives, our legacy isn't the things we do, it's what we plant in people's hearts. It's what people say about you once you leave. I think that's the real deal. I'm not that nice all the time. I have my moments. I say I have my Jedi side and my Darth Vader side. I have my Darth Vader side. Recently, I saw an amazing AI illustration of Darth Vader in a sunflower field making a heart with his hands. That's me, picking a small flower, looking cute. We all have our moments. We're only human and sometimes lose control. But I think that's the real deal. I'm in this real deal vibe.
Before we finish, I wanted to take this opportunity to do something I've been waiting to do for a long time, which is to apologize to you.
Why, kid?
You sent me your book, but it got lost during my move and resurfaced 3 months later. By then, 4 months had passed, and it no longer made sense to discuss it. I was so embarrassed and felt so guilty about it.
Don't worry about it.
Sorry I never explained what happened. Don't worry about it.
Thank you, my love. I'm so happy to see you.
Congrats on your great story. Thank you for all you've done and keep doing.
Thank you, and you too. You know I'm your fan, your inspiration.
I love you. We are mutually.
I love your posts, your videos.
Everything, let me give you a kiss.
Ah, me too. Died from the heat. We're at 30 degrees. We're at 30.
But you said we forgot the wall here.